Hello and welcome back, everybody, for Stream B here on Face It TV. Make sure that you also have twitch.tv/Academy pulled up so you get all the Academy action. We will be looking through FlyQuest Academy versus TSM and CLG versus Golden Guardians, and I'll be your host for the day. You can call me Kangas. I'm joined once again by Cubby and Rafa. I haven't had this combo since week 1, I don't think. Right, guys? It's been a while.
Correct. It's been quite a while. Cubby's been playing keep away with me. He's spending too much time with the mad scientist over on Stream A
Cubby,
now.
has anything...
What can I say? I like the tech.
I was gonna say, has he rubbed off on you in any way? Like, are you now a Syndra support believer?
I still have 0 games of solo queue played. I only queue up when Rafa needs me to carry him or needs to gank top.
All
so
right.
we're good.
Holy moly! All right.
Well, we'll get you into that champions queue if we can. That'd be awesome. But let's start talking about the teams coming up: FlyQuest Academy versus TSM Academy, and address the elephant in the room. Both of these teams currently tied for last place right now with a 3-9 record. And starting off, I'd like to talk about FlyQuest a little bit. Their roster, of course: Philip, Yuji, Spyrax, Tomo, and Diamond. Cubby, I'm going to tee you up for this one to just give us a quick little intro for FlyQuest Academy and kind of general thoughts on what this team on paper looks like to you, and then we'll get into the discussion later about what's been happening.
Yeah, it's no secret that both of these teams have been struggling, and it is Academy. So we're going to kind of use this time we have to be realistic about where these teams are at, but also kind of look at what we are looking for out of these teams to take those next steps and improve. FlyQuest, I think that both of these teams have had struggles with their early game, specifically jungle pathing. And I think that's for 2 different reasons, I should say. Mm-hmm. One being that Yuji is from a different region. Yuji is still trying to pick up comms with his team, still trying to meld. And I think that we've seen some slower early games from FlyQuest with some mistakes being made. Things have gone haywire. Whereas with TSM, it seems like they've been trying to play a little bit faster with some of their compositions, but just haven't been able to snowball early game leads into wins.
So let's talk about TSM now real quick, Rafa, because again, this team on paper, Viper's the big name that stands out for me in terms of what we expected from the team's playstyle, maybe through the top side. What are your thoughts, though, from just the names, just the players going into the season, what the expectations were?
Yeah, let's talk about where these players came from, right? So Hyper and Takeover have already gotten at least 1 full split under their belt through the summer season. Takeover was splitting time with Sword, but a majority of the success was found when TSM were playing Takeover because the meta at the time suited his champion pool, a lot of fighter mids. And then, of course, Yurson coming in halfway through the spring split, also a major core of TSM success because he was pivotal on making clutch engages and starting out the fights just right. Viper coming in, even though this is his first split with TSM Academy, he's made his name through last year in the Proving Ground circuit, winning the first ever Proving Grounds tournament with no org on the top side of the map. And, of course, Immortals Academy during the summer split with Anda. Instinct is the newest member overall, not just on this team, but in the Academy for this team as well. He is a rookie coming in from 100 Thieves next. So you have some strong developmental pieces, obviously more towards the mid and the bottom side of the map. And then, of course, some experienced players on the top side.
That's what the teams look like on paper, where they came from, how they got here. So, Cubby, let's start talking about what here means for these 2 teams. Because, of course, they are both sitting tied for last place. So, in your opinion, what's been going on so far in the early season to kind of lead towards this poor performance right out the gate?
I kind of teased jungle pathing an early game, and that is where my sights go. And I know that from talking with both of these squads, they were pretty honest about where their struggles were as well. Both of them citing their own early game issues, as if you've kept up with the games like we have, it is apparent that there are some gaps in communication or game plans early. So a big emphasis on first clears. And I know that from talking, starting out with FlyQuest, specifically catching up with Loyota, one of the analysts for this team, really speaks highly about Diamond and some of the value of having a player like Diamond in the room. Keep in mind, Diamond, he has won 5 out of the 6 Academy splits that he's played in the regular season. This guy has pedigree in Academy, right? And bringing that experience and being able to bring that to the rest of his teammates, Loyota was like, it's been so helpful just having him in comms, in the room, making sure that we are able to improve more and more throughout these weeks. And so in the FlyQuest camp, big emphasis on improving those early games, having sounder game plans and being able to execute them. Because as the game moves on, FlyQuest, they have been indexing their drafts more towards late game, but they also have had some nice late game team fight moments. Some of the issues I feel like for them are just they get too far behind in games and are never able to find their way back in.
And I believe we also have some replays that we can run here to demonstrate some of FlyQuest Academy's woes. But, of course, they do also have some of their own strengths. Yeah, here we go. So as we're talking about this, Rafa, again, just general thoughts on FlyQuest Academy's form and kind of what got them to this position.
So the thing is that FlyQuest have this incredible developmental piece, as Cubby already mentioned, in the jungle and the mid lane in UG and Spyrax, but because so much of the early game is dependent on how well the jungle is communicating with the rest of the team to set up these early game plays, it has really led to a lot of early game deficits in FlyQuest's lead. And UG, while strong solo queue player, cannot consistently translate those leads on a competitive stage. And we're seeing something similar with Hyper as well over at TSM, although Hyper doesn't get as much as a pass as UG because he's had a full summer split.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we're not seeing the same successes we did in the summer season is a little troublesome for TSM Academy. And I know that it's something that Gunaso, who has talked with Cubby just before the show, is working on, just really solving those early game issues.
Yeah, and real quick to kind of reference what Rafa was saying with FlyQuest early game woes, UG averaging 1.41 kills plus assists at 14. That is the lowest out of all junglers.
Mm-hmm.
Part of this is how FlyQuest plays because he has the highest kill percentage or kill participation on his team, but also Spyrax being down 472 gold at 14 as well. That's the worst out of all mid laners. So part of this is due to draft, but also part of it is due to the fact that a lot of the times these two players have not been on the same page and not synced up in their early game. And that's something we're really looking for FlyQuest to improve on moving forward throughout the season.
Yeah, so mid-jungle for FlyQuest, also still jungle as a focus for TSM. But if we look at specific players that we think are the bright spots for both of these teams, Cubby, I'm going to pass
Rafa's time, baby.
Okay, we'll pass it to Rafa then. We'll give it to Rafa.
He wants to talk about instinct.
Rafa, who you want to hype up here?
Yes.
I can't think of anybody that might be on your mind.
Dude, Tony Instinct Win has been probably the brightest spot for TSM and just consistently being able to carry out so many of these team fights, putting out so much consistent damage, and his positioning and his recognition of how far he can push his limits, even in games that they are losing. It is just absolutely incredible. And the fact that he is the most green member on this roster.
Instinct has been standing out for sure.
Yeah, and I know that from speaking with Gunyaso beforehand, he could not say enough good things about Instinct. This guy, he is 17, and he is already showing a lot of veteran experience with how he's able to move himself around the map, how he's positioning in some of these late-game team fights. And I know that on a team that's struggling, that's only won 25% of their games, he has a 4.95 KDA, which I think speaks really highly to how intelligently he is positioning in these fights.
Mm-hmm. And as we also saw there during the replay package, FlyQuest having a couple of standout performers on their team as well. There's bright spots for both of these rosters, so that's what we want to highlight going into this next match. Speaking of, Champion Select is ready, so I'm going to pass it off to just the casters, Rafa and Cubby, to take it away for game number 1.
Thank you so much, Kangas. And I want to jump quickly on what Kangas was mentioning too. In that last replay that we saw from FlyQuest, some of the bright spots is one of those developmental pieces for this FlyQuest Academy squad in Spyrax. He came from the collegiate scene after bouncing around a few amateur teams, most notably Supernova Dark Matter, before being picked up by Maryville University's second team in Maryville Black, and then taking over once the mid laner Wolfie did leave.
He was halfway
and
through
graduate
the tournament. He played top 8 for CLOL. I think it really speaks to how good mechanically this player is. 2 accounts in top 30 last season. Someone that we're really excited about. And while the team has had some early game woes, I think that Spyrax is actually playing these team fights really well, which is something that we did expect out of this player, and that is a good thing to see out of FlyQuest.
The other thing too is that we were talking about this during the pregame and the pre-show. Spyrax's best win rate so far is the Victor. It's something that FlyQuest still have available. Obviously, picking it early as B1, probably not their biggest priority, but something that TSM should keep an eye out for.
And catching up with this pick ban and what we see so far, of course, Zeri enabled here was last week as well. We expect to see that banned on red side or first picked on blue. And I actually like the bans on the side of FlyQuest, taking away Hyper's signature Lee Sin that he has an insane win rate on throughout his career, playing in collegiate, amateur, and now academy. And then also taking away 2 flex picks for TSM, something very unique to them. Viper's Akali has been insane. We've also seen Takeover go off on this champion in the past. And Viper actually has 2 games of Quirky top as well. So I think that this is not only setting up for that Victor that you teased, Rafa, but also taking away some of the flexibility from TSM as they are on red side.
Something to note here is that FlyQuest now have a conscious choice to make. So obviously, because Jinx and Aphelios were both still up, TSM are taking the Aphelios side of the trade for Instinct, but FlyQuest will more than likely want to lock in the Jinx before it gets banned out in the second phase. But then also FlyQuest, they need to determine, do they want to secure a jungle priority pick for Yuji, something like the Jarvan, which now with the Xin Zhao and Lee Sin gone, would be the best jungler left available. Or do you want to prioritize the Victor? Whoa!
That could be fun. Okay, this is very different coming out of FlyQuest. We were expecting Jinx Jarvan, pretty standard response into Aphelios Sin, but this is something that's very unique to Yuji, and something that I don't think we've seen Qiyana Jungle played in Academy yet, Rafa.
Yeah, we've only seen, I think, 1 or 2 games in the LCS so far. I know Pride Stalker pulled it out for Golden Guardians LCS roster. So
you got there.
yeah. See, the thing is, they're both yellow, and so it's like,
GGA played an LCS lock-in. You know, it's a new member. So this is something that we did kind of tease some of the struggles of Yuji's early games, but something that's really exciting about Yuji is this guy's history. He had Challenger on the Ionian Super Server with over 100 ping playing from Mongolia. And I know that he's still kind of picking up English, melding with the rest of this team. But if you just watch Yuji's games, it's very clear that this guy has mechanics. Like, he has the fingers to execute these plays. It's just he isn't always in the right spot at the right time early in the season. So this Qiyana pick really excites me because I think it does lean into some of the strengths of Yuji, where he is just this raw mechanical talent that we have in the jungle. And this is a champion you can do filthy plays on if you have those hands, and Yuji does.
This is the game where Yuji gets a chance to demonstrate his mechanical prowess, because on the things like the Jarvan and the Xin Zhao, I mean, everyone is playing it, right? So you don't always get the chance to have these moments to really demonstrate your just overall skill ability. And I think with something like a Qiyana, you have to be more careful and precise with timing windows. Xin Zhao and Jarvan is so flexible in compositions, whereas now there's a direct focus on how FlyQuest want to play around Yuji's special pick right here. I know you're kind of curious about the Ahri.
Yes. Yeah. Ahri was reworked. She is enabled as we are playing on 12.3. That being taken away, that's new. I know that we've seen some players taking it on the Champions Queue server. If you guys haven't been tuning into those games in the last 2 days, I don't know what you're doing. We have seen some Academy players do rather well on that server, but it seems to be setting up for a Syndra. And I wanted to hit on the Renekton Riven bans real quick, because this screams at me that Philip is going to be taking Camille. So I want to see if Spyrax combos with that Camille. Galio's still on the table. If FlyQuest are looking to play fast, that could be that big wombo combo around level 6 to try and get on top of this Aphelios Syndra and shut them down before they can get big.
Playing Galio into something like a Syndra, while Syndra is still going to have a pretty decent push favor back, the extra magic resistance built into just Galio's champion kit overall will allow him to survive the laning phase if he wants to be more facilitative role. Victor is still up on the table, and while it's not the overall dream that you're looking for, Cubby, it would still play into FlyQuest's ability to control these fights on their own terms.
And it is going to be that trusty dusty Victor, as FlyQuest, they do have 3 wins. All 3 of those wins, Spyrax has been on Victor, as you teased out beforehand. And I expect this Trinity to be locked in. This is a matchup that we saw Impact playing against C9 on the LCS stage, one that does rather well into Camille. And it would give TSM that split push option, the ability now to play 3 lanes and try and give them that backdoor win condition. Because when I look at the team fight we have at the moment, I really like what FlyQuest has between this Qiyana, Victor, and Jinx. That's a lot of upfront damage to try and get that first reset.
Burst damage from the Supreme Display of Talent, the Chaos Storm. You get them all super low, and then you set up for Tomo easy resets either off of the Super Mega Death Rocket combo as well, or just stray rockets, baby, from the fish bones. The rest of FlyQuest, they have a very powerful setup for team fighting around these objectives, right? And I think, trading out the Qiyana versus what we would normally see here, like a Jarvan, means that you don't get as much easy engaged terrain setup, but it's just in the niche situations when you're around the Dragon Pit, around the Baron Pit, any terrain that is available, suddenly you have a very devastating combo that TSM now suddenly have to become more conscious about when these fights become more apparent.
I'm curious to see it as well, because I think the one champ that UG was really known for, or especially indexed towards, compared to some of the other junglers that we have, is Zed. It was one of his top 3 champions that he played on his way to being top 5 challenger on the NA server this past year. And so this assassin playstyle is something that is specialty to UG. And I want to see if he's able to make use, because the Jarvan, it makes so much sense with the rest of the composition that FlyQuest has. So this swap onto Qiyana, this is on purpose. It is for a reason. And I want to see if UG can cash in with it. I know spawning into the game, it's a first strike Qiyana, so I'm even more curious to see this.
The landscape of this first game. To remind everyone at home, TSM and FlyQuest not doing so hot right now. 25% win rate overall across games, 3 wins and 9 losses. They're at the bottom of the standings. FlyQuest here. To remind everyone though, Academy is all about development, and there's strong developmental pieces for FlyQuest and TSM. And although obviously they would like to be higher up in the standings, as long as they are building and learning from these losses and becoming stronger and stronger as not only as a team but also as individuals, there's moments to look for greatness here in this particular matchup when both are in a similar spot. UG on this Qiyana, he's breaking away from the mold. No more J4 that he could have potentially gone for. This is his game to really show how he can change and make some game-defining moments here. Whereas you look for TSM, for the most part, a lot of standard stuff that we would mostly expect. As we brought up before, Instinct has been the most consistent performer. He now has to navigate through so much more this time around, especially with the supreme display of talent.
And a lot of it's going to be on your son as well, to make sure that you are on Nautilus. If you're able to catch Qiyana with one of those dredge lines or land the depth charge on the Qiyana, you can really throw a wrench in the game plan for FlyQuest, which is combo those early ultimates, get that first reset for Jinx, and run the fight from there.
Now, Xin Zhao, when it comes to jungle clearing, Cubby, is very flexible. You can go for, three camp clears to get a instant level 3 and then be super aggressive, or you can full clear. Qiyana is a little bit different. Her clear speed and her first clear is not as healthy, and it's not as flexible as the Xin Zhao is, and especially since she did receive nerfs during her reign of terror at Worlds last year. UG has to be a bit more specific, and will need a little bit more assistance on just the first 3 minutes of the game. Afterwards, when she gets some extra AD from her first component spike, then it's okay.
And you can see FlyQuest playing around this. Tomo Diamond, a pretty heavy leash for the Qiyana to make sure that UG is able to get going in this jungle clear. This does make the lane more difficult for Diamond and Tomo, as Diamond can have to see if he can connect with the FLYA at the right time to make sure that dredge line doesn't lead to an auto, and Philip's in trouble.
And Philip doesn't have flash from before. Viper just taking that instantly first blood in the first 2 minutes.
Oh, bit of an oops from Philip. He does drop the ignite. He doesn't lose that many minions, but it is first blood, and Viper that teased that this Tryndamere pick, something that a lot of the pros like into Camille. Part of that is the power that you have level 1 compared to the Camille, and Viper makes good use of it there.
And the fact that Viper is not running teleport in this lane, the Ghost and the Flash for more aggressive all-in potential, he burns it so early from Philip, so now Philip is not going to have an advantageous back. And I'm curious, even though Viper is on the other side of the map, I wonder if he's going to immediately bounce back, try to put Philip and combo that with Viper to set up the wave in a state where Philip really needs help from UG, because then that will set back UG's plan of just wanting to get to level 6.
UG is going for the full clear early, thanks to the heavy leash. And I think that for the side of TSM, having Hyper path towards this bot side makes sense, but Viper getting the solo kill top breaks a lot of the plans that FlyQuest might want to do. As UG being on that top side, that is a spot where you can try and punish this Tryndamere. But I think now that Viper has that kill, unless they're going to dive him on this wave, it's going to be really tough for TSM to pull this off.
Well, UG is trying to react to it. Hyper is crossing mid right now, trying to beeline towards the top side of the map. FlyQuest are aware of this, so they know that they want to go for this play. There's a very short window to execute upon it. UG
Spotted.
is making his way towards the top side of the map. There's no blast cone available for Hyper, so he has to make his way through distance, but because UG is spotted on a ward, looks like FlyQuest will call the dive off.
Hyper's able to get the Krugs too. So really nice start for TSM, thanks to Viper. So we did tease early game woes getting into the series for both teams. One of the reasons that they are at the bottom of the standings. Specifically, FlyQuest averaging being down over 1,000 gold at 14. TSM averaging being down 713. But for Viper, he is actually averaging being up gold at 14. It's only plus 20, but when your team is that far behind early, on average, it does show that TSM has put a lot of priority on making sure that Viper is set up for success. And that's something that we like, is that oftentimes plays well in the Viper's picks and champion pool.
Nice thing here from Philip, though, as he gets this huge wave crash, he makes good use of his time off. He gets a ward down onto the Raptor Pip of Hyper because he knows that without both of his summoner spells versus the 1-7 advantage from Viper, he is prone to being punished in this long lane. But now that they're going to get vision on Hyper, they know that there would be a window that he could path through the top side of the map. But you look at the vision control, River, Scuttlecrab vision there. There's a ward also in the tri-bush, so it is damn near impossible for Hyper to get up to the top side of the map without Philip at least knowing beforehand. And it looks like my partner, Cubby, has left the call.
I would never leave you, Rafa.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
We're good to go. It's fun times being remote in the Midwest with all the snow on the ground and the snow melting today. But we're going to have to see if TSM can melt through the side of FlyQuest, as they are looking to set up potentially around this first dragon as Hyper's wrapping up that clear.
But UG will try to punish Viper. He's not level 6 quite yet. Philip already getting a health chunk out of him.
Oh boy.
And Viper, without the Undying Rage, is just right into the waiting arms of UG. Well corralled by Philip.
And a good bounce back for FlyQuest. They really needed that kill in the top lane. And as you mentioned, Philip didn't have that TP, so he was going to be in a very disadvantageous situation at that point. The fact that Yuji's up there to break it before Tryndamere hits 6 helps Philip get back in the game and might even open up windows for Camille to look for roams.
The other thing, too, for Yuji, he gets his first strike proc, getting a little bit extra gold. It's also his first kill of the game. So he's on track to getting his first power spike. However, because Yuji was on the top side of the map, TSM know that there's a potential opportunity. As I say that, though, well played by Diamond and Tomo, not only being safe, but dodging out a potential gank.
Even gold game as UG might be looking to sneak in the bot side now. Your son playing rather far up with the wave crashing. Spyrax also trying to get this wave in. Hyper will not stick around to punish. So we have a couple trades going around the map at the moment, Rafa. And I know that with both of these teams, they were looking to kind of check in with cleaning up these early games. And something that I've liked is the fact that it seems like UG, yes, Philip did make that mistake, level 1 in the top side, but UG's been a lot more focused this game on where to go. And that Kiana already netting a kill in the top side. That's a good start for FlyQuest. They try and get that pick rolling.
And the nice thing about this champion is that you're not necessarily hinged upon making an early game impact. This is a champion that enjoys taking extra time to farm up. Xin Zhao and Jarvan, I mean, they will always be able to make an impact, but they don't necessarily benefit that much from just power farming as much, because they will always do the same job, which is to either engage or create disengage opportunities and create space for the rest of the team. But if you get more resources on an assassin like Kiana, your ability to wipe out targets just becomes easier.
And there are some good targets for Kiana. Takeover, Instinct. It's not the easiest to get on a Syndra. Scatter, she does have the opportunity to have some counterplay, but that's another moment where we could see UG shine. And now that UG does have access to that level 6 and Rift Herald's about to spawn, I want to see if FlyQuest makes a move for this, because this is the time that Kiana loves to fight on.
UG is not going to reveal their presence to Hyper, knowing that they had vision on them in the river, but did not get spotted out by the sweeper from Hyper either. So Hyper is not entirely sure where UG is, could have an idea. Viper getting pushed onto the top side of the map. Takeover rotating first as well. Spyrax. Meanwhile, we have a potential all-in on the bottom side of the map. Tomo! Oh no. could not get a chance to grab the lantern. Yurson a little too big, stepping on top of the lantern.
And this is huge for TSM as they won on both sides of the map. They weren't able to get access to that Rift Heralders. The bot lane did not rotate, and Trinamir is still crushing Philip in that top side, despite the kill that Yuji was able to net. And then on the bot side, Instinct and Yurson, that's a calculated all-in from them as they cashed in on this press the attack of Aphelios, something that we are seeing more ADs opt for as Aphelios being lower range, does have to step up and try and get that PTA burst off, and can do so with the Gale Force. Instinct doesn't even need those items to get the first kill now, as Jinx has been put heavily far behind, and TSM now find themselves with a gold lead and a Shelly in their back pockets.
It's not a huge gold lead, but it is still something that TSM have been working on netting for themselves, having stronger laning phases, being able to act upon opportunities where they know it's safe and they can take those calculated all-ins. And Instinct and Yurson, after speaking with them just a couple weeks back, Instinct has mentioned that he loves working with Yurson. They're incredibly vocal to each other, and they constantly play out these 2v2 lanes and have such a great understanding of when they can take these risks. It's just in the past games that we've seen TSM, the early game has not always been on the same page, but at least when it comes to these two in isolated lanes, they are great at finding opportunities. Now that Hyper is on the bottom side of the map trying to protect Instinct and Yurson as this wave is crashing in, and they're going to try to act on Tomo and Diamond. Yuji is in the area, but he's not close enough. This would be way too long before Yuji can get in there. Yurson, they know exactly where he is. Instinct trying to flash over, gets the heal out as well. Will he survive? Not quite yet. Tomo's going to get resets, but he's super low. It's easy for Hyper to clean them both up.
TSM were able to make that play happen thanks to the ward they have in these two brushes in the bot side. They knew that FlyQuest, they either had to base or they were stuck in that brush. They guessed correctly, get a 3v2. Yuji was not there to respond, and TSM take a big win for themselves in the bot lane and continue to push this game forward.
Hyper also restraining on using the Rift Herald, knowing that it wouldn't break open the turret quite yet, although it would net himself some plates. But you can tell that TSM have a bigger vision for this objective. They want to funnel a lot of gold onto one of their solo laners. We'll take a look back at this replay on how this devolved down.
Once again, you can see that ward in the bot brush. Because of that, they could reasonably assume that FlyQuest is here. They also had info that Yuji was not, so take the 3v2. Tomo, burn flash to make that kill happen. There are now no sums in the bot lane, and with the second dragon being up, both teams are looking to see if they can find more.
FlyQuest are starting up with the second dragon. They'll have Supreme Display of Talent available, remembering that Instinct will not have some sort of this fight either. That might be a little too spooky for TSM to fight over. They have vision on it, but Hyper cannot get his hands on it either. The rest of FlyQuest will be able to disengage.
Big win for FlyQuest, and somewhat surprised that TSM did not pull the trigger with Yurson, as Tomo with no flash and Diamond with no ult. I think that was a window that TSM might have been able to look very aggressively to punish, but they are scared of Yuji's level 6, and here it comes.
3v2 onto the bottom side. Yuji not even needing the Supreme Display of Talent, just the raw burst and the setup from both him and Diamond make the kill happen on a summonerless Instinct.
But Instinct trades it out. Able to pick up Diamond, that's still good for TSM. I'm surprised they threw down the Herald as Instinct isn't here to net the gold, but it seems like Hyper and Yurson want to get a crash off and try and take this bot outer first. They won't be able to do it, though.
It'll be a little difficult to actually break open the turret. They want to go for this dive. They still have Supreme Display of Talent, and maybe there wasn't any communication on whether that ultimate had been used. That's an easy shutdown for Tomo. Could look for another reset onto Yurson. No flash available. Zap connects. That's the double for FlyQuest.
And all of a sudden, Tomo is 4-2-0 on this Jinx, and somewhat disaster strikes for TSM. That was a very forced play that I don't think they needed to go for. But they go for it and get heavily punished by the side of FlyQuest.
Once again, FlyQuest being able to punish on what seemed like just an information gap.
That was
now,
weird.
Maybe it's like it. I imagine that if TSM knew for sure that Supreme Display of Talent had not been used, then that play is actually not that atrocious. But one of these things that the learning curves that both of these teams are going through, right? Growing pains and being able to make sure that the information is always accurate. And it's always a struggle when you're bringing together new players and new teams together, and that's what can make or break an Academy team that has very talented individuals, but doesn't translate on stage.
As we approach the 14-minute mark, at least TSM, they do have a gold lead, but we don't like the scaling for TSM. They will win sides as this game goes on, but we've seen plenty of Victor plus Jinx, and the range, once Victor gets access to the slows, can help peel for this Jinx. And the fact that Tomo is 4-2-0, this is the bot lane from last year's FlyQuest. Tomo Diamond very comfortable playing together. I think it's going to be tough for the side of TSM to deal with, and now Viper's going to have to burn ult.
And watch how Yuji instantly disengages as soon as Undying Rage is popped.
Doesn't want to eat the crits.
Doesn't want to get too close. Yeah. The crits would be a little too much for Yuji, and then, you know, overplaying your hand. Super Mega Death Rocket, though, finds its mark on to Takeover. Great communication from Spyrax and Tomo.
That was an educated guess. Oh, that's tragic for the side of TSM, as well as Spyrax gets to crash that wave for free. Hyper was on the bot side. They were looking for a play, and yes, they are going to deny these waves, but FlyQuest denying waves in the other two lanes, so TSM fall behind in this play, and that gold deficit, it shrunk to, well, now they took first break, but it still shrunk to 1K.
You were close there.
Hey, we're back even
definitely
down.
See where. Yeah, I can see the vision, and with this turret being picked up here, right, we're now off just by 300 gold, and despite all the plays that have happened back and forth, we're still in an even game, and it's very representative of where these teams are at, not only just in this game particularly, but just in a general sense of where they are in the standings. You know, they have the potential to make great team plays, but they're still working, obviously, on the coordination.
Not quite there, and TSM are going to have to be very coordinated in how they execute these fights, because this is a 5-2-0 Jinx. We saw the gold toggle up nearly 2K gold on Instinct, the counterpart. Tomo is someone that has always been a very consistent, solid late game team fighter. That's always been a strength of Tomo as a player, and we're going to get to see that full force potentially in this one, as he is set up to really carry this game for FlyQuest. And we're going to have to see if TSM are able to clean the execute and deal with it. They have some tools. They have Yurson, of course, on the Nautilus. Syndra has a lot of range to try and shut down this Jinx, and it is a Kraken Slayer, so that does leave Tomo a little bit more vulnerable, but TSM coordination will be put to the test trying to execute plays on this Fed Jinx.
And a couple things to note in terms of positives for both teams. TSM have been winning out on a majority of the objectives. They've taken both Rift Heralds as well as the first Dragon. Could not secure the second one because of the fear of that supreme display of talent on a summonerless Aphelios. Whereas FlyQuest, they've been building a lot of the resources. Hold up. Uh-oh, UG. He has Flash available, but the Death Charge is going to come in. Hyper, supreme display of talent, forced to use just to make sure that he can get out alive.
That is big because Dragon is up for TSM, and a good skirmish from Hyper and Yurson should net them this objective, but I think it makes them not fighting that second Dragon even more critical, Rafa. They're going up against a team that scales very hard. That was a window where they had more cooldowns than FlyQuest, and they just didn't feel confident enough pulling the trigger into this Kiana. I understand how powerful Supreme Display of Talent is around the Dragon, but that was still a good time to fight. And this would be sole point for them in a game where they get heavily outscaled. So I think that might come back to bite them, but a good play from Hyper and Yurson to make sure they're able to pick up that Dragon after the chunk, and TSM are still keeping themselves in this game.
Yeah, the fact they found Yuji before the Dragon, and it makes it so that you can actually take that objective without any worrisome whatsoever. Now, FlyQuest, as you already mentioned, scaling is a bit more on their side. Victor is just going to become a freaking monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a team fight, respectively.
I'll take Trinivir inside any day.
Yeah. Undying Rage is busted.
Not to mention the Gale Force Devori Quick Blades, which Viper is working towards next, but TSM, even though it's an even gold game, they still have gotten more of the neutrals. Second Herald, they are going to throw down mid, take this turret even lower, and one mistake from FlyQuest that will mean now that the mid outer should fall for TSM. So FlyQuest need to be careful how they play and rotate around mid leading up to this next Dragon if they want to keep that turret up.
While Yuji hasn't necessarily looked incredibly flashy and doesn't have all the kills, or the part of all the kill participation in this game. I do want to give a little bit of praise right now because he looks way more comfortable on this Kiana than he has on any of the Xin Zhao games or the Jarvan games that we have seen throughout the entire season. And I think that a simple change like this, where you're giving a little bit of agency towards the player, I know, UG, be a little careful.
Oh,
did I just caster curse him?
yep, pretty
God,
much.
Man.
It was a nice play from Hyper. The flash over the Supreme Display of Talent, we'll give Hyper that one. That was really well played. So kill goes over to Yuji, takes the red, now takes the crab, and FlyQuest is once again an area where Yuji didn't have the support of his other lanes, goes for the solo play and gets punished.
Spyrex really wants this blue buff, however.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that mistake bleeds from Yuji. Spyrax greeting a little hard. That's a big flash now lost, and TSM, they have ways to punish. You have a Nautilus, you have a Syndra. So no flash being on Spyrax. I really want to see if TSM can attack this now. It won't be up for the next Dragon, a fight that TSM wants for themselves, try and get to that soul point. They now have a target to go for. Very good for TSM. They've played the objective downtime rather well, punishing FlyQuest for a couple mistakes.
Yeah, small mistakes like these, when catching up with Loyoda before this match, it's a big focus for especially these newer players like Spyrex and Yuji, have been trying to find the balance between getting what you want as an individual and determining what's good overall for the team. Instinct getting a lot of damage out onto Tomo, but he answers right back, not even needing the Super Mega Death Market, goes right in, almost taking him down. That was close.
It is a good example of the press the attack Gale Force playstyle, though, as Instinct does go for that burst damage and does win out on those 1v1s, especially if you're able to avoid those chompers. So Tomo keeping the hand steady, no flash, no heal needed. They do get the heal from Instinct, so small win for the side of FlyQuest, but we're going to have to look out for those plays from Aphelios. I know it's something that, speaking with Chronicler, has been very popular over in Korea, this playstyle for the Aphelios, and Korean Aphelioses are built different. And if you have been watching any of LCS and have seen Berserker play that champion, you will understand why.
I know we're really focused on the Academy, but, just...
give a shout out to Korean talent as well.
Yeah, dude, the Aphelios gameplay over the weekend was actually freaking nuts from Berserker. Both 2 games back-to-back. But on this match in particular, FlyQuest, the longer this game is going out, we harken back to they are favored for. And TSM are not necessarily on a timer per se, but in terms of how effective their win cons go, the later the game goes, you're more dependent on Viper being able to open up the game and being the utmost thorn in FlyQuest's side as a split pusher, and also relying on Instinct to keep himself safe in these fights so that he can be the cleanup duty after all the big cooldowns are closed. Now, FlyQuest setting up for this next Dragon, have a little bit of a death rush going on, vision control on their side. It'll be a little difficult for TSM to clear out.
And let's keep our eyes on Spyrax for this fight, as Diamond goes early.
Whoa. Flash play, Yurson bites the dust here. Philip sailing over the wall, Supreme Display of Talent lands on a Hyper, that's the jungler gone. Viper's gonna go in, Undying range is available. He's maximized as much kills as he can before it times out, and he goes down without being able to pop out. Tomo finds a double, more resets for him, and FlyQuest will now net this Dragon.
This is a great call from Diamond because he sees that, hey, we have 5 mid TSM, they're late to this rotation. Let's go. The flash, the FLYA, the stopwatch. Diamond's able to make that engage happen. I know we'll get a replay of that, but good fight for FlyQuest. Important they're able to pick up this Dragon, as we love their scaling in the 5v5 as this game goes on. And they're set up to go late now. Get a replay.
And just watch this replay one more time. As soon as you call it, Diamond flash play, and that's how the fight starts.
They have the numbers advantage. And then look at how it splits from here. Hyper doesn't retreat with the rest of his team, gets cut off by that Supreme Display of Talent. Viper trying to do as much work as he can in the back line, but a good death sentence from Diamond not only saves his teammate lives, but barely lets him escape with his. They're able to get out with fight 1, the Dragon to their name. Now FlyQuest, the scaling comp we like, off of 1k gold as this game goes on. TSM, really, I think they really, as weird as it sounds, I want to see them fight early because Spyrax is about a minute away from getting that flash up on the Victor. I think that if Victor gets flash, with Jinx with sums up as well, it's so difficult for TSM to cleanly execute a fight. So I like how they're poking and prodding around as a group. Want to see if Spyrax can dodge out of this window, and or if TSM can hit it, as they're looking for Spyrax now on the side. And this is very smart from the Victor. Check this out. Victor hiding here. on the top side. He doesn't show on that wave because he knows he still doesn't have flash. He knows that's what TSM is looking for. Kind of a small play from Spyrax, one that I really like there.
Yeah, Spyrax has definitely been showing a lot of improvement in his awareness on the map. Philip, Undying Rage check. Oh, yeah, it's available. Uh-oh. Yeah, Philip, you got to get out of this one.
Hold on.
However, they're calling for an audible here. Teleport coming in. But wouldn't this open up an opportunity for TSM to just take the Baron on the other side of the map? This is Spyrax and Yuji dedicated. So now, TSM, this is your moment. You got to claim and shut down this Baron fast. I don't know if it's going to be fast enough to do it. FlyQuest both have Tomo and Diamond here to poke and prod. Try to annoy them, stall them from doing out the Baron. However, Tomo getting a little too far forward. Death Charge will come out. Double knock up onto the back line. But they're still alive. Tomo can still put out damage from far away. Super Mega Death Rock is still available. And TSM, despite having Teleport Burn and Yuji show up onto the bottom side of the map to take down Viper, cannot trade the Baron. Oh, did I actually literally lose Cubby? Oh, no. Oh, no. All right, well, gamers, welcome to the Rafa solo cast stream, as I might be lying. Cubby, are you back with me?
We're back. Weird day out here in the Midwest, but the FlyQuest magically made them stop the Baron. That's what I'm picking up.
You keep scaring me, bro.
Yeah. Just have some confidence next time.
I think FlyQuest are trying to look for a punish here. Yuji.
He's got all
However,
tough.
the Undying Rage is going to be back up once again, depending on how they use it. Undying Rage is now primed out, and Yuji hiding in the grass stealth mode. Beautifully executed by FlyQuest.
Really nice from the side of Yuji using that. Okay, using the, you know, the invulnerability, or I should say the invisibility, to dodge out on the invulnerability of Viper on this Tryndamere. And this is an aggressive TP coming in from Philip, as he's actually casting this in the Baron pit. They have a 5v4 as FlyQuest looking for a power play, and they will start this.
And Viper has no way of being able to react to this Baron even when he comes off cooldown because, remember, Ghost, Flash, Tryndamere, no teleport available. Hyper could go for the Miracle 50-50. They have double control wards into the pit. They're trying to stall him out. Hyper finally gets a chance to flash over, but just too much time bought by Philip. He will be the sacrificial lamb, but FlyQuest do net the Baron for his life.
Still well worth it for the side of FlyQuest as 3k gold lead. They will have Baron up for this dragon that's spawning in a minute 10. And everything is fine and dandy for FlyQuest, as I really think the big shift of power in this game is when Hyper and Yurson went for that bot lane dive, Rafa, and it just got turned on by Tomo.
FlyQuest are now starting to pull ahead. It's been a slow but steady uphill climb for the side of FlyQuest, because now we're at a 3,000 gold lead, and even though at 26 minutes it's not as big when you get that kind of lead in the early game, for a team that scales pretty damn well in the 5v5, FlyQuest are being set up for success as we approach the 30-minute mark.
Like how Spyrax, he doesn't have TP. In FlyQuest, I like how they actually aren't using this Baron to take the dragon. They can do that on their retreat. Instead, they're trying to take the base as Lantern used. Tomo.
Hyper's a little deep, but right into the jungle point. Yuji gets a massive supreme display of talent. Not enough. Follow-up, though, from Tomo. Sends out a Super Mega Death Rocket. Super low onto Viper. Instinct has to flash away, but Yuji! Dude, this pick is working out so great for the jungler FlyQuest. He looks so refreshed, and he looks like he's in control.
That 4-man display of talent just stalled any hopes that TSM had to get onto Tomo, who didn't even have to blow that flash. This will be 2 inhibitors falling for FlyQuest, and they might look for the game.
Might not be quite the game yet, but double inhibitors will give you a huge advantage of map control. Now, as you called it before, they can take the dragon, not necessarily on the retreat, but after the resets, they'll be zooming right on over. TSM are pinging it heavily right now, because it would allow them to be on soul point, but TSM, they have to be quick. They're not going to have all their members. Instinct won't be there either, and so that's a huge amount of consistent damage being left.
UG has a control ward, can try and steal.
Oh my god, just to rub salt in the wound here, Philip has locked down Takeover with the Hextech Ultimatum. Might go down for his efforts once again, but it's all for the success of the team because FlyQuest are able to clean up right on after. They pull out the mop, and that's 3 members gone for TSM, and they're going to look to end right now.
FlyQuest's ability to stall out this game and the fact that Tomo was the benefactor of so many early kills made what was a decent early game from TSM up until that bot dive looked like an easy win for FlyQuest throughout the rest of this, as both these teams said they wanted to work on their early games. I would say that the early games still have some things that they can work on, but as the games went on, FlyQuest much better in how they set up these team fights, and a well-deserved game 1 win.
Yeah, I think for TSM, Viper's going to try to trade one back with the Undying Rage, but they'll end the game.
Nexus time.
For TSM, you can see that a lot of the early game focus, those points were demonstrated. And also the objective control from Hyper. They planned out a great way of having priority readies to secure the first dragon of the game and both the Rift Heralds, without FlyQuest really getting anything back. The problem was the mid-game translation of that late afterwards, because when they went for the second all-in on the Instinct, he burned both of his summoner spells, which means that he could not have it available for the second dragon. FlyQuest took advantage of that, and you mentioned that that could have been a breaking point where they could have been at Soul Point. Now, looking at how the game played out, there's a lot of variables that kind of blur the lines of what could have been and what should not have been. But I think the point being is that TSM, obviously had the objective control down, but when it came down to information communication, that's where things started to fall apart.
I just want to see them understand the team comp that not only you have, but what you're up against. It's Victor Jinx. You had a sum down and an alt down to the bot lane where you had that advantage. So that's one where I'm looking for these academy teams to push hard. I mean, these are not best of ones. We are trying to de-emphasize a lot of the standings. We just want to see teams improve how they play League. And I think that even if you lose that fight, it's the right call to go for it. Not taking it. I know that you're up against a Kiana. It was tough to get through that choke, but you could have went through bot as well, as you could have grouped up and forced them out there.
Right.
So I think there were a few options that TSM had and were not able to pull off or coordinate. And want to see going into the next game if we see a shift and a TSM are able to hit that early game even harder, as they did manage to get a lead. I think that you properly identified it, though, just could not transition that into a win.
Which is what Academy is all about. Yes, there are some teams that have the same amount of developmental pieces and are doing it better than FlyQuest and TSM right now, but this is all about learning, and it's all about developing for the future, which we can definitely say before we close out. UG, fantastic showing. Kiana looked so damn good for this guy. I don't know if it's going to net a respect ban from TSM going into game 2, but at least now FlyQuest understand, hey, when we play to UG and we play to some of these unorthodox picks or out of the pocket, then we're going to get a more comfortable jungler, which is what FlyQuest need to do to really facilitate all of their pieces. When we come back from this break, though, not only will we be resuming for the second half of TSM Academy and FlyQuest Academy, we're also going to be joined by our lovely host, Kangas, who's got a new game show for us. So make sure you stick around.